taken every romance novel off of my bookshelves, and that's probably because I did. There's so many books around me. Hi guys, I'm Rhonda and welcome to a new video. Today I am doing my summer romance book recommendation video. I also have a few general fiction books I want to recommend just because I think they're perfect for the summertime, and I don't have enough of them to do a separate video. So we're gonna have mostly romances, and then at the end I'm gonna have a few general fiction that I think are perfect for the summertime. Now, I will also be doing a summer recommendation for thriller and mystery books, so definitely make sure that you are subscribed so that you don't miss that video in the future. All right, we have a lot of books to go through. What I'm going to do, how I'm going to do this is I'm not going to go over too much about the plot because we would be here until Christmas if I went over the plot of every single book. So I'm going to give you maybe like a little snippet, and then I'm going to tell you what I like about it and why I think they're good for the summertime. And I feel like if you want to know more about these books, I've read them all, and I do have a playlist with all of my wrap-ups, and just go there and watch those wrap-up videos if you want to know more about those books. Okay, I actually don't even know where to begin, and actually I feel like I'm really, really bright, so let me see if that helps. Okay, that's a little better. Anyway, I think I'm going to start with Elsie Silver, and my first recommendation is this entire series. This is the Chestnut Springs series. This is a small town cowboy romance set in Canada, and these are very steamy romances that follow the Eaton family. And the first book is, nope, not Reckless. The first book is Flawless, and then you have Heartless, and then next there's Powerless, and then there's Hopeless, and then finally we have Reckless. I would say for the most part with this book series, it is probably more like a 3.5 star rating for me, just because I don't like a lot of steam in my books. These were very spicy. I was not loving that, but I enjoyed the romance. I was enjoying the plot. And I would absolutely recommend it because I don't think anything screams summertime more than a good cowboy romance. If you hear some tinking, that would be my dogs. They are over here playing and having a good time. So I'm sorry for the background noise. We're going to continue with Elsie Silver. I would also recommend her small town romance series called the Rose Hill series. The first book is Wild Love, and then we have, actually this one is what got me out of a book slump. And then we have Wild Eyes, and then there's Wild Side. I haven't read this one yet, but I'm throwing it in here so that you know what books are out right now. But this series is somewhat connected to the Chestnut Springs series, and this one is just a small town romance, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So I would absolutely recommend this series in addition to the Chestnut Springs series. Also just know that yes, all of Elsie Silver's books are pretty long, but they do read very, very fast. So I've enjoyed all of her books. The spiciness is definitely out of my comfort zone, but the story itself, I've really enjoyed her books. And then after you read Chestnut Springs, if you're still in the mood for small town cowboy romances, I would recommend the Rebel Blue series. This is by Lila Sage, and this is a completed series, just like Chestnut Springs. And this whole series actually reminded me a lot of Chestnut Springs. It is very spicy. However, these books are a lot shorter. And I enjoyed this. I think this entire series is a 3-star series for me too. Again, too spicy for me, but I enjoyed the stories. I think I did enjoy Chestnut Springs more. The first book in the series is Done and Dusted. I was actually kind of surprised how much I enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun. And then we have Swift and Saddled. I didn't enjoy this one as much as the other books. This is probably my least favorite, but it was still cute. And then my favorite book of the series so far is Lost and Lassoed. This definitely has a hate to love trope, and I ate this up. It was so good. And then the last book in the series is Wild and Wrangled. This is on my summer TBR. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard really good things about it. So if you're in the mood for more cowboy romances, I would say pick up the Rebel Blue series. If you're like me and you really don't like a lot of spice in your books and you just prefer more of a sweet closed door romance, then I have some options for you. The first author I want to talk about is, let's see if I can do this. Okay, here we go. Sarah Adams. As you can tell, she has quite the backlist. Just know that Sarah Adams writes mostly closed door romances. She's starting to dabble in adding some spice to her books, which I'm not loving. I wish she would go back and just do closed door romances because she's really good at that. I'll go into the ones that do have a little bit of spice, but for the most part, all of her books are zero spice and are closed door. But Sarah Adams writes really, really sweet romances. I call them book candy because they're just good little palate cleansers in between some of the darker books that I tend to read. But I really, really enjoyed her books. So let's talk about all of them. The first contemporary romance that she released is The Match and then The Enemy. Both of these are interconnected, and this is part of the, I think it's called the Charleston series, and these were really, really cute. So as I said, this was her first book, and you're gonna notice as you read more of her books that you can tell she really hadn't found her voice yet, but I still really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed The Enemy, not as much as this one. And then next is the Off Limits Rule, and then the Temporary Roomie. I think I enjoyed the Off Limits Rule more. This one had Brother's Best Friend, and it was really cute. I think the female main character is a little bit older, but this one definitely was giving me some summery vibes because there's some scenes on a boat. And the Temporary Roomie was really cute too. I want to say this is Forced Proximity, a little bit of hate to love. She does not like him, and I think the problem I had with that was I felt like she was kind of mean, and I didn't understand her hatred for him. But it was still really sweet. If you like hate to love, I would recommend it. But this is part of the second series she wrote. Next up is, I don't know that this series is completed, but she does have a sports romance series. The first one is The Cheat Sheet, and this is Friends to Lovers, and she is a ballerina, and he is a professional football player, and it was really, really sweet. I enjoyed it. And then the next book is The Rule Book. This is Second Chance, Hate to Love, and he's a football player, and she is his new agent, and they have a past. So it was cute. This one did have a couple of scenes where she added spice, but in the beginning of the book, she does mention what chapters that have those scenes in it so that you can skip it in case that's not your thing, which I did appreciate. But this one was okay. I definitely enjoyed this one more. And then finally, my most favorite series that she wrote is the Rome, Kentucky series. This is a small town series following some siblings. This is not completed. There's going to be 4 books in this series, and the 4th book comes out, I want to say, in the fall. Don't hold me to that. I'm not positive. But the first book is When in Rome. She is a pop star who ends up stranded in this town, and she ends up staying with this guy here, and he owns a pie shop, and it was just so sweet and fun, and I really, really liked the small town feels of this book. And then my favorite book in the series so far is Practice Makes Perfect. She is like the town sweetheart. She's the youngest sister in this family, and he is the bodyguard of the pop star in this book. And she enlists his help because she needs help learning how to date. She's very awkward on dates. She doesn't know what she's doing, and so they do a little bit of fake dating too. It was so cute, so funny. There's a supermarket scene in this book that was hilarious, so definitely recommend this one. And then finally, I also loved her last book, which is Beg, Borrow, or Steal. This is a little bit of a workplace rivals to lovers. She is a teacher. He is a teacher at the same school. They have a past. They don't get along. He ends up moving in next door. She needs his help with something that may get her fired from being a teacher. And then also as a side plot, he is an author. He's very well established. However, no one knows who he is because he uses a pen name. And then she's trying to become a writer. Like I said, this one is a workplace rivals to lover / hate to love, but I really enjoyed it. This was probably the funniest out of all of the books. I still enjoyed this one more. This was a 5-star read, but this one came in real close. This is like a 4.5 star. Don't sleep on this one. It was a lot of fun. And then as I mentioned, there is a 4th book coming out later this year, and it has to do with a chef, and I think it's going to be a friends to lovers trope. So I'm really looking forward to that one too. But I've really enjoyed all of Sarah Adams' books. She writes really good, sweet romances that don't have these really big, complicated problems to overcome. And they're just so sweet. Like I said, they're book candy. I love them all. If you haven't read any of her books, I would say to start with the Rome, Kentucky series and then make your way through her backlist. This is her best series, I think. Okay, so let's keep with the closed door romances, and let's talk about Annabelle Monahan. I love Annabelle Monahan. She is such a good writer. I was introduced to her last year, and I read Nora Goes Off Script. This kind of went viral, and I picked it up because FOMO, right? This one is about a woman. She's newly divorced, and she writes a movie, or she writes movies for Hallmark, and the newest movie that she wrote is kind of semi-autobiographical because it's about her divorce. Well, it's too good to be put on Hallmark, so it ends up getting picked up by a major production company, and they're making a full-blown movie. And some of the movie is set at her house, and then once the movie wraps up, the main male guy who plays her husband in the movie ends up hanging out at her house just to decompress. And I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying there is a romance between them two. This was super cute, really enjoyed it. And then next, there's Same Time Next Summer. This is about Sam and Wyatt, and this is kind of like a childhood friends to lovers or a second chance trope. They kind of spent summers together throughout their childhood, and Wyatt was Sam's first love. And she comes back to this little beach house that her family owns, and she reconnects with Wyatt. And this was really sweet. It definitely made me tear up a little bit. I really enjoyed it. And then her release from last summer is Summer Romance, and this is about a woman who is getting divorced, and she's a single mom. She has a lot going on, but she's trying to get herself out there, but she doesn't want to have another serious relationship. She's wanting just a little summer romance. And she has a really funny meet cute with the guy in this book. I think his name is Ethan. And they end up having a little summer fling, and it was really sweet, and it was actually surprisingly emotional. I did cry in this because her mother has also just passed away, and she's dealing with that grief as well. My mother passed away many years ago. I was actually 12 years old when she died, but that grief never goes away. And so anytime there's a book about a mother dying or a mother who's sick, it's just going to hit me hard. I really love this one. It was a 5-star read for me, and I would absolutely recommend it. And then her newest release, and sadly I don't have a copy of that one yet. It comes out next week, but that one's called It's a Love Story. I did already read that one because I had a digital art copy through NetGalley, and I really enjoyed that one too. I think that one was a 4-star read for me, and it is about a childhood actress who is now a kind of like an executive or a production person at a movie studio, and she's trying to get this movie greenlit. However, her boss isn't wanting to make it, and she lies to him and says that she knows this guy named Jack, who is actually a very well-known pop star. He's very famous. She mentions that they worked together on the show that she did when she was a kid, and she can get in contact with him and see if he'll do a song for the soundtrack. And her boss is like, yeah, I will absolutely greenlight this movie if you can get him to sing a song on the soundtrack. There's another person in this book called Dan. Dan and Jane are kind of like workplace rivals. They don't get along. In fact, Dan has sabotaged her work a little bit, she thinks. And Dan tells her, hey, I know you're trying to get Jack to write music for this movie. He is actually playing at a festival where my family lives. It's kind of like a beachy town. And if you want, you can come stay at my parents' house, and my brother-in-law or my brother is working that festival, and he can get you in backstage to have a one-on-one FaceTime with Jack. So she ends up going back home with Dan. It's definitely a little bit of workplace rivals to lovers. It's close proximity, and I really loved it. Annabelle Monahan writes very vivid stories. They're very well-paced, well-thought-out, well-developed stories, and they are so sweet. All of her books have a little bit more depth, I think, than Sarah Adams. Sarah Adams is just straight up book candy. They're just, I can't even explain how good her books are. I would definitely pick up any of her books. They're so bingeable, and I think they're perfect for the summertime because you can just take them to the pool and just knock one out very quickly. So good. Okay, next let's talk about another one of my favorite authors, and that is Abby Jimenez. I have read her entire backlist. These are not all of her books. These are just my favorites that I would recommend for the summertime. But Abby Jimenez writes books that are very rom-com-y. There's a lot of humor in it, but there's also depth because each one of her books has characters who are dealing with real problems that you or I would have. It's not some convoluted problem that happens in fiction books. These are very real problems. But let's start with the Part of Your World series. It's a 3-book series, and the first book is Part of Your World, and this one is a little bit of an age gap. It's a small town, and there's a teeny tiny bit of magical realism, and I absolutely loved it. It was so good. This was my first Abby Jimenez book that I read. And then next is yours truly. This was so good. This is about Brianna and Jacob, and they both work at a hospital. Brianna is up for a promotion. However, she thinks the newest doctor that is hired, named Jacob, is going to get the job. And so she is not having that. And Jacob is dealing with pretty intense anxiety. He can function during his day-to-day, but he has triggers. And just talking to Brianna about this job. He can't do it. It causes him too much anxiety. So he ends up writing letters to her, and they're so sweet. The relationship in this book and the things they do for each other was so good. I would absolutely recommend this one. And then finally, my favorite book so far that Abby Jimenez has written is the last book in the series called Just for the Summer. This is about Justin and Emma, and Justin makes a post on a Reddit forum saying that every girl that he's dated, and after they've broken up, she has found her soulmate. She ends up getting married. And then Emma sees this post and she's like, oh my gosh, same thing. So she's a traveling nurse, and her and Justin are talking, and they agreed to maybe semi-date each other so that afterwards when they break up, they will meet their soulmate. That is a very teeny tiny thing, or a teeny tiny plot in this entire book. The whole story is about Justin and Emma. Justin is dealing with some very serious issues at home. He's having to basically become a guardian for his brothers and sisters. And then Emma is dealing with a very toxic mother. She's had abandonment issues with her mom, and they're both dealing with things. This book, I was ugly crying through most of it. So I would say don't take this to the pool or the beach unless you enjoy crying in public, because this will make you cry. This entire series was amazing. And I would say, please do not read Just for the Summer without reading this entire series first, because these are interconnected, and this book will hit so much harder if you've read these other two books, okay? So promise me you'll do that. And then finally, Abby Jimenez's newest release that just came out this summer is Say You'll Remember Me, and I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I definitely think nothing is going to top Just for the Summer, but I still really enjoyed this one. This is about Xavier, who is a vet, and Sam. They have a pretty interesting meet cute too. They end up going on this pretty amazing first date. However, Sam is actually moving back home to take care of her mom, who has dementia. And so they're trying to navigate this relationship long distance. I really enjoyed it. I did not cry at all in this book. It didn't hit hard for me like Just for the Summer did. And I think that's why I was a little bit disappointed. I felt like when you read about a character who's having to be a caretaker for someone who has dementia or Alzheimer's, or just being a caretaker for a parent, period, is going to be a hard read, and it just didn't hit like I thought it was going to. So that's why I gave it 4 stars, but I would still recommend it. It was very, very funny. It was a very cute book. I laughed, and I would recommend it still. Next, let's talk about Katherine Center. Katherine Center has quite a backlist as well. I think she has 12, 13, 14 books. I don't know. I have not read them all, but the ones I have read, I've really enjoyed. And the ones I want to recommend for the summer, I have 3 books I want to recommend. The first one is The Bodyguard. This was so good. This was my first Katherine Center book. This is about an actor named Jack Stapleton, and he's having a problem with some fans who are acting very stalker-ish. And I think his agent asks him or tells him to hire a bodyguard, or hires a bodyguard for him. And his bodyguard is actually a female named Hannah. She is very good at her job, and she ends up becoming a bodyguard for him. The problem is his mom is really sick, and he needs to go to Texas to see her. And he doesn't want her or the rest of his family to worry that someone is after him. So he asks Hannah to fake date him, pretend to be his girlfriend, so that his family isn't worried about his safety. So that is what this book is about. I loved it. The inner monologues, actually, with all, and I've said this before, with all Katherine Center books, Katherine writes really witty dialogue. She writes really quirky characters. The inner dialogue of her female main characters is always so funny. The banter that the main female character has with herself always cracks me up, and I love that about Katherine Center books. I know that when I pick a Katherine Center book up, that is what I'm going to get. I'm going to laugh, and this was really, really enjoyable. And then her new release from last summer is The Rom-Commers. This one is about Emma and Charlie Yates. Emma is she's always wanted to be a screenwriter. She's always wanted to write rom-com movies. However, there was an accident like 10 years ago, and she had to become a caretaker for her younger sister and her dad. So she's had to put her life on hold for her family. Well, her sister is now grown, and an opportunity comes along where she can help rewrite a rom-com with Charlie Yates, who is like the best screenwriter in Hollywood at the moment. Emma is actually very much a fan of Charlie Yates. She's a little bit of a fangirl. She really looks up to him and really enjoys his work. The problem is Charlie Yates is known for his action movies, I think his sci-fi movies, and he is being forced to write a rom-com, which is really bad. So Emma is hired and she goes to Hollywood to help Charlie Yates rewrite this rom-com. Charlie does not want her help, but he's kind of forced to have her help. And again, this is a grumpy sunshine. It was very funny. I laughed. This is also a little bit of a love letter to rom-coms itself, because the things that are cliche in rom-coms are featured in this book, and I really enjoyed it. Finally is Katherine Center's newest book, and that is The Love Haters. If you're looking for a dose of sunshine in a tropical setting, pick this book up. I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. This is set in Key West. It is about a woman who works for a production company that makes promo videos, and she travels to Key West to do a promo for the U.S. Coast Guard. However, she lies and says that she knows how to swim when she really doesn't. So our main male character named Hutch ends up teaching her how to swim. And again, the banter was cute, the romance was cute, the characters are quirky, and more importantly, yeah, there's a romance with a guy, but there's also a romance with the female main character, with herself, because she is dealing with some negative body image issues just from her past, and she's really trying to learn to love her body and love herself. And I felt like Katherine Center did a really good job with that. I think most, if not all, women can relate to our female main character in this book, because we have all had to deal with negative body image issues. I know I have. It's the society we live in. But I felt like Katherine Center did a great job with it, and I really enjoyed it. So I thought this was funny. I thought it was cute. I was very moved around the end of the book, and it was a good one. So I know some people didn't like this one too. I would say give it a chance. I really enjoyed it. Let's talk about Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren is a author duo. It's 2 people who are writing books together, and they also have a pretty extensive list. However, I've not loved all of their books. So I'm only going to recommend 2 that I think are perfect for the summertime. The first one is The Unhoneymooners. I really enjoyed this one. I think I gave this 5 stars. This is definitely a hate to love trope, and it's set in Maui. It's about people who are having to pretend to be married for this free trip. So this is definitely a fake marriage trope. There is close proximity. The banter between these 2 is hilarious. The situations they found themselves in was hilarious. So I think if you're looking for a summer book that sets in like Hawaii or that tropical setting, this is another good book to pick up. I flew through this. I read it so fast, and I was giggling and kicking my feet the entire time. So one of my favorites is The Honeymooners. And then the other book I would recommend is a book for people who want a love story that has more depth, that might make them cry, and that is Love in Other Words. This is another book that I gave 5 stars. This is childhood friends to lovers trope. It's about 2 people who grew up next door to each other. I think it's on a lake, or I can't remember if it's a beach town, but it's about Elliot and Macy, and it's just their story, and it was so good, but it's going to make you cry, and I loved it, and I would recommend it for the summer too if you're looking for something with, like I said, a little bit more depth. Next up is Tessa Bailey. Tessa Bailey writes very steamy romances that have a very heavy hand with dirty talk. I cannot stand the dirty talk in her books, so I don't read a lot of her books. In fact, I probably won't read anymore. But I do have a couple of books I would recommend, and one of them is It Happened One Summer, and the other one is Hook, Line, and Sinker. These 2 books are interconnected. This book is Schitt's Creek meets Deadliest Catch. I really enjoyed it. I did not like the steamy scenes. It was very cringy, and I definitely skipped all of that. But the backstory and the story of Piper, who is the main female character in this book, is amazing. This is Piper. She is kind of like a Hollywood it girl. And this is Brendan. He is a sea captain, and she ends up moving to this coastal town to take over a bar that was left to her and her sister by her father. And her and her sister have moved to this town, and they're taking over this dive bar and making it something that's more them. And this is definitely a grumpy sunshine, and I thought their romance was so amazing. Again, I hated the spicy scenes, but I would still recommend it just because their romance was so good, and I really enjoyed, you know, just that Deadliest Catch vibes I was getting from this. And then the second one features the friend of Brendan and Piper's younger sister. Piper's younger sister is trying to get into, I think, the music business, And this book is more of like a friends to lovers trope. And I thought it was really cute too. I think I gave this one 3 stars and this one was a 4-star read. And I would recommend both of these for the summer. I thought they were a lot of fun and I was getting summer feels from them. One of the authors I have not talked about yet is Emily Henry. I would only recommend one of her books for the summertime, and that is People We Meet on Vacation. That is my favorite book, I think, by her. That one has to do with, it's kind of like a friends to lovers trope, and it has to do with our female main character who works, I don't know if she's an influencer or if she works for a online travel magazine, but she travels for a living, and her best friend is the main character, and he goes with her every year on one of these trips, and they just hang out, and he's her best friend. Well, 2 years ago, something happened between these two, and they haven't spoken for 2 years, and you as a reader, you're trying to figure that out through the course of this book. And our female main character, I can't remember her name, but she misses her best friend and invites him to go on one more trip, kind of patch things up. This was kind of like a slow burn romance. I love their friend relationship, and it was just a very well written book. I love the pining, I love the yearning, and I really felt how explosive it was when they connected, we'll say that. This book is being made into a movie, and I cannot wait for that movie to come out, but I would absolutely recommend People We Meet on Vacation. I do have a copy of this book, but I've loaned it out to a friend, and it is probably the only Emily Henry book that I would recommend you read during the summertime. But I have loved other books that she's written. This one's just more of a summary book. All right, next up is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is another book that I would say to not take with you if you're going to be out in public, because I ugly cried halfway through this book through the entire rest of the book. So this was emotional for me. This one has magical realism. It's about this woman who has inherited an apartment in New York City, and when she walks to their front door, she doesn't know if it's 7 years in the past or if it's in the present. And if it's 7 years in the past, then there's a man who has sublet the apartment from her aunt who used to own this apartment, and she has to interact with him in that past situation. It's a little convoluted, but it makes sense in the book. It was so good. I would say this is probably my favorite Ashley Poston book. This is the only one that's gotten 5 stars from me. Her other books I've read have just been okay. I've given them all like 3 stars. I felt like something was missing from it that was in this book, and I think that was passion and yearning. There's also a second plot going on in this book that I think is what caused me to be so emotional, and it was just very well written. If you like magical realism books, I would say definitely pick it up. It's very popular for a reason. All right, next is Emma of 83rd Street by Audrey Belisa and Emily Harding. This is book 1 of a series they're doing on modern retellings of Jane Austen novels. So this one is a modern retelling of Emma, and I loved it. This is going to be the slowest burn ever. Nothing happens until this little bit here, which is how I like my romances. I like slow burn romances so much. This is childhood friends to lovers, and you're following very similar characters to Jane Austen's original Emma novel, just with more of a modern twist. And I thought it was very well done. The pining and the yearning was so well written in this book, and I definitely want to continue the series. And I think it's really perfect for the summertime if you're looking for just a sweet romance. There is some steamy scenes in this book, and again, it happens around the end. I felt like this book really did not need it. All that could have been left out and it would have been just a 5-star book. But I gave this 4 stars, and I would absolutely recommend this book, and I definitely want to continue with the series. The next book I want to recommend for your summer read is The Magic of Lemon Drop Pie by Rachel Linden. This is another book with magical realism, and it's another book that made me incredibly emotional just because, again, it's dealing with the death of a mother. This is about Lolly, who is on the cusp of turning 30, and she comes across her old diary or journal that has all these goals that she set for herself when she was a teenager. And when she finds it, she realizes she hasn't done any of that. But she ends up meeting with her aunt and telling her that she came across this diary, and she's realized that her life isn't what she thought it was going to be, and she's feeling kind of down about it. So her aunt is a little eccentric, and she gives her 3 lemon drops. And she says, go to bed tonight, take one of them, and verbally say how you wish your life was different. And when you wake up in the morning, you are going to live 24 hours in the life that you imagine for yourself. And she gets 3 chances to do this. And oh gosh, I was ugly crying through a lot of this book. Usually when I cry, I'll go to the bathroom and there's a scene. I'm just so I'm not crying in front of my kids or my husband. I could not do that in this book. My husband was actually, I remember my husband actually asking me if I was going to be okay. And I was like, you know what? I don't even know right now. Even though this book is sad, it's also uplifting. There is a second chance romance in it that is a very small subplot of the book. And I thought it was so sweet. It's very predictable, but I really enjoyed it, and I feel like everyone needs to read this book because I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. So if you're wanting an uplifting, heartfelt story this summer, then I would say absolutely pick up this book and read it. I feel like you can't talk about summer books without mentioning Carly Fortune, and I've only read 2 of her books. I think she had 3 books come out, and then she has a new release that just came out. I haven't read it yet. I'll talk about it in just a minute, but the one book I would recommend that I really enjoyed is Every Summer After. This is about Percy, Sam, and Charlie. And I think Percy's family buys this lake house that's next door to Sam and Charlie, who are brothers. And every summer for 6 years, she goes to this lake house and she spends the summers with these brothers. So this one is going to be a friendship to lovers trope. Percy and Sam connect. They have a little romance, but something happens to where they fall apart and Percy does not come back to the lake. Well, I want to say Sam and Charlie's mother has passed away, and Percy has felt like their mother was always like a second mother to her. So she wants to pay her respects and come back to Barry's Bay, and she reconnects with Sam, and they're having to deal with their past. This was a very well written romance. Such a good book. I want to say I gave it 3 or 4 stars. It was so good. But this is part of an interconnected series. Her newest book that just came out, I want to say either in May or April, is One Golden Summer. In this one, you're going to follow Charlie, who is Sam's brother. I have not read this one yet, but I'm telling you, there are absolutely no bad reviews of this book. I cannot wait to read it. It's on my summer TBR this year, and I think it's going to be the first book I read. I've heard it's great. So this one I'm going to read very soon this summer, and then this one I would definitely recommend. Next is a book I don't hear a lot of people talk about, and that is Hate Mail by Donna Marchetti. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. These are about 2 people who live at opposite ends of the country when they were children, and through a project at elementary school, I think when they were in 5th grade, they are assigned to be pen pals. So Naomi, the female main character, when she's a kid, she writes this really sweet pen pal letter to Luca. Luca's going through stuff and he's like, who's this girl? And he writes a very insulting letter back to Naomi. So this begins a very long pen pal writing thing where they are trying to out insult each other. And you get these letters throughout the book, and yes, they're very, very mean, but they're also very funny because they're trying to outdo each other, and I thought it was really cute. Naomi, as an adult, is a weather girl, and I can't remember what Luca does for a living, but they've lost contact. She hasn't received a letter from Luca in a while, and so she's trying to find Luca. They've never met. She's trying to find out what happened to him, and this is very predictable. I'm going to give it that. It's incredibly predictable, but I love the romance. I thought it was so good. And again, the letters, if you like books with real letter writing, you'll probably love this one. It was so funny and cute, and I love the romance, and I would recommend it. Next up is Kiss My Cupcake by Helena Hunting, and I have not read anything by this author, but I really enjoyed this book. This is going to be a hate to love trope, and I thought it was very, very cute. This is about Blair, who is opening a bakery that kind of pairs, I want to say, cupcakes with cocktails. So it's kind of an interesting twist to a bakery. However, next door, a man by the name of Ronan is turning his, I think it's his grandfather's old dive bar into an axe throwing bar. So Blair and Ronan's businesses are right next door to each other, and they share a wall. So anytime someone is throwing an axe at the wall, things are falling off the shelves in Blair's restaurant. So she's pissed. She is not having this, and she just goes stomping into Ronan's bar and like, hey, stop it. You need to move this axe throwing thing to another wall. Anyway, it was really cute. This is definitely hate to love, and I love the romance. This did get a little steamy, but I thought overall it was a very cute book, and I would recommend it. And I don't hear a lot of people talk about this one. It was really sweet. Let's go back to emotional reads and talk about The Float Plan by Trish Dollar. I heard about this book through another booktuber, and she was absolutely right. This looks so fun and sweet and summery, but don't let the cover fool you. This is a book about grief and moving on and starting over, and I loved every bit of it. I gave it 4 stars. This is about Anna, whose fiance has passed away, and they had always planned to take their sailboat around the Caribbean islands together, and they were supposed to leave on this specific date. Well, that date is coming up, and she decides to do it on her own. So she starts to get going, but she really doesn't know what she's doing. She's not a sailor. Her fiance was going to do all that. So she ends up hiring Keen. I think he's from Ireland or Scotland, but he's also dealing with his own issues, and she hires Keen to become the captain of the sailboat to get her through this journey. And yeah, there is a romance in this book, and it was very sweet and heartwarming, but this book is definitely more about starting over and dealing with your grief and overcoming that grief. So if you're looking for a summer romance that packs a punch, that has more depth, that's more of an emotional read, then I would definitely recommend Float Plan by Trish Dollar. And this is book 1 in a 3-book series. I haven't read the other 2 books yet. I have them, I just haven't been able to get to them, but this was really good. All right, if you are looking for a good baseball romance, then I would recommend The Art of Catching Feelings by Alicia Thompson. I tried to read one other book by this author, didn't love it. She has a new book coming out this summer. I think it has to do with musicians on a cruise ship, and I did get approved through NetGalley to read that, so hopefully I'll get to that one this summer too. But this one is incredibly good. I actually gave this one 4 stars. As I mentioned, this is a baseball romance, and this is about Daphne, who has just gotten divorced, and one of her friends and her are at a professional baseball game, and she's had a little too many ballpark beers and gets a little tipsy, and the man next to her is heckling all the players, and so she gets in on it, and this one player named Chris kind of has the yips. He's really in kind of like a rut. He's not hitting very well at the moment, and he goes up to plate, and she heckles him. She says something to him that's actually really funny, but it hits him very hard, and while he's at the plate, he starts to get a little emotional. Well, video of his reaction goes viral, and then Daphne actually feels really bad about it, and she goes on something like Instagram and sends him a private message just kind of apologizing for what happened to him, but she forgets to tell him that she was the one who heckled him, and he responds, and they kind of go back and forth with these really sweet messages. So there's a little bit of catfishing. Some people don't like catfishing. I don't either, but I felt like it was fine in this book. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good baseball romance, and I really want to read more baseball romances, but I haven't come across any that are really hitting the same way. But if you're looking for a good one for the dog days of summer, then I would absolutely recommend The Art of Catching Feelings. Okay, I had to change my battery. We have 2 more romances left, and then 3 general fictions left, so we are almost there. I feel like I've been talking too much about the plot of these books, so I'm just going to try and rush through these last little bits because I've been talking for like an hour and a half and I'm getting hoarse. Okay, the next romance I want to talk about is The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood, and I guess this is a little bit like magical realism. I'm not sure what you would call it, but this is about a woman who dies and she's in their afterlife, and she meets a man who she thinks is the one. He's dead too. It's just like, oh my God, she had this connection with him. Well, he is actually there by mistake, and the people in the afterlife sends him back to Earth, and our female main character is distraught by this and is talking to the person assigned to her soul, and that person is like, you know what, let me send you back to Earth for a year, and if you can find this man and prove that he's your true love or your soulmate, then you can stay. If you can't, you have to come back to the afterlife. And so that's what this book is about. This one is a little bit predictable, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a unique plot idea, and I thought it was well executed, and it was a lot of fun to read. There is a little bit of depth to this. I did cry a little bit in this book, but you know what? I am a book crier. I do cry in most books. But I really enjoyed it, and I would say this is a good book to read this summer too if you're looking for a fun and different and unique romance. The very last romance I'm going to talk about before I get into the 3 general fiction books is a romance that just came out not too long ago called Passion Project by London Sperry. I loved this book. This one was a 5-star read. This is a romance set in New York City. This is about Bennett Taylor, whose fiance has passed away, and she's really lost her passion for life. She's just kind of going through the motions, and she's supposed to go on this date with this man named Henry. She ends up standing him up, and they end up connecting again, and Henry realizes that she's really dealing with some pretty severe depression and grief, and he says, you know what, you live in the greatest city in the world. Let me show you how great it is and help you find your passion. And the passion he's trying to help her find is her passion for life. This one's definitely more of a rom-com. There is a romance in here between Henry and Bennett that I thought was amazing. This is kind of like a friends to lovers trope. I thought it was very well done. This is a debut novel, and I would absolutely read anything else by her. It was very well done, and I really enjoyed this entire book. I love the New York setting. I love the romance. I loved how grief was handled in this book, and it was just a fun, good time. All right, next up are the last 3 books. All 3 of these are general fiction books, and we're going to continue with the depression train because the next book I want to talk about is The Wedding People. I read this, I want to say in the fall of this year, or August or September, and this was amazing. This was so good. This is about a woman whose life has fallen apart, and she's going through severe depression, and she plans to go to this boutique hotel that she's always wanted to stay at, and she books one night because she has plans to kill herself. Sounds morbid, sounds dark, but I feel like it was covered very, very well in this book. While she's at this hotel, she realizes that she was able to book a room by mistake because this entire hotel has been booked for an upcoming wedding. In fact, she meets the bride, I think in an elevator, and the bride is like, who are you? You're not in my wedding. And our main female character says, oh, I'm here to kill myself. And the bride's like, no, please don't. I can't remember the bride's name, but that is how the bride and Phoebe meet. The bride ends up talking Phoebe into holding off on killing herself through the weekend because she thinks that she can help her. So the bride tells Phoebe, you know what, my maid of honor can't make it. Why don't you become my maid of honor and help me with the wedding? And when the wedding's over, then you can decide what you want to do. So that is what this book is about. It's about Phoebe kind of immersing herself into this family and this friendship with the bride and helping her with the wedding. And I found this very endearing. This is just about found friendships and found family and starting over. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done. And again, this is another author I would read anything by. So I would say if you're looking for a good general fiction book that is written in a very smart way and it's going to make you think, that's also giving you summer vibes, then I would absolutely recommend this one. It's set in Newport, Rhode Island, and there's a wedding, and I can't think of a general fiction book that's going to give you more summer vibes than this. All right, next up is another general fiction book that I think is perfect for the summertime, and that is Summer Fridays by Suzanne Rendell. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this, and I feel like more people should read this book. It was so good. I want to say this was a 4-star read, but this is about Sawyer and Nick. This is set in the summertime in New York City in 1999. And so with Sawyer, she kind of feels like her, I don't know if it's her boyfriend or her fiance. We're going to say boyfriend, but she thinks he is cheating on her with a coworker named Kendra. Kendra's boyfriend's name is Nick, and he's feeling the same way. And he ends up sending Sawyer an instant message through AOL, if you know, you know. And he's like, hey, I think my girlfriend Kendra is cheating on me with your boyfriend. Let's meet up and compare notes. So Sawyer agrees, and she ends up having a little bit of a connection with Nick, and they start meeting every Friday during the summertime to kind of compare notes with what's going on with their significant others, and they start doing touristy things that Sawyer has never done in New York City. I think if you're looking for pre-9/11 New York City vibes, this book is definitely where it's at. You're getting a glimpse of what it was like to live in not just New York City, but in America before 9/11, before smartphones, before social media, before the internet really just took off. So this was really interesting to read, just to kind of glimpse back to how innocent life was, how innocent our nation was before 9/11. But yes, this book is about a romance that blossoms between Sawyer and Nick, and yes, it's having to deal with cheating, and no one likes reading books about cheating, whether it's emotional cheating or whatever. I don't like reading about it either. That's why I gave this book 4 stars. But it's also about the immediate after effects of 9/11. That is what this book is about. Now I had to change my memory card, which means I've been talking way too much. I don't remember where I left off, but with Summer Fridays, if you are looking for a summer read that is more impactful, then I would say definitely pick up Summer Fridays. I feel like this is just a really underrated book that not a lot of people have read. I really love this one, and I feel like more people should read it. So definitely add Summer Fridays to your summer TBR. The last and final book I want to talk about, and I'm not going to get into what this book is about. I'm just going to tell you the summer feels you get from it and why I liked it. But that book is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have only read one other TJR book, and that was Evelyn Hugo earlier this year, and I loved it. I am giving this one 4 stars. It was incredible. This is set in the 80s, so if you're wanting a book about Malibu in the early 80s before Malibu got taken over by mansions and rich people, then this is the book for you. I never knew that Malibu was just a rustic place for locals. I mean, I never knew that, and I thought that was very interesting. So here we are following Nina, who is a model, and she is kind of like the face of the California girl. Like, she is a surfer girl, and that is what she's known for. And I feel like TJR did a great job of capturing the essence of what Malibu was like back then. I could picture it all so vividly in my head. I loved what the story was about, which is about abandonment. It's about loyalty. It's about the relationships between Nina and her brothers and sisters. There's a total of 4 of them, and it's just about their relationships with each other and their relationships with their parents. And I thought this was so well done and so unique, and I really loved it. We were also introduced to Carrie Soto in this book, and did not like her in this book. But I've heard the book about Carrie Soto called Carrie Soto is Back is amazing, so I'm going to read that this summer as well. But this one was just so well done, and I just really liked the setting, just that Malibu, California setting. It was so, so good. So add this one to your summer TBR if you're like me and are new to the Taylor Jenkins Reid universe. All right, everyone, that was a lot of books to go over. I'm sorry if this video is so long. Sometimes I can't help myself. That's the problem when you love talking about books. Anyway, that is all I have for you today. I hope through this stack of books you found some books that you can add to your summer TBR. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. I have some more summer recommendation videos coming out soon. And in the comments, let me know if there are any books that you would recommend that are your go-to summer book recommendations. Let me know in the comments what they are. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.